Friday the 13th is associated with bad luck. But when I think of the date, the first thing I think of is Wednesday. Talk about irony. Wednesday Addams is by far the most problematic child in the Addams family. She was born on a day associated with misfortune. Fortunately for us, she isn't a bad apple, she's just misunderstood. She's an interesting character. She has love for her brother, even though in the Netflix series, he's portrayed to be this flimsy weasel of a kid. In the animated series, he was more of a rascal, but for the sake of convenience, I'll be mainly talking about the Netflix Wednesday, played by everyone's favorite 5'1" Mexican, Jenna Ortega. Wednesday is a mess. In the first episode, she shows off her proclivity for brute violence. Her brother was being bullied, so she had no choice but to retaliate with the same energy and stand on business. Her character is one shrouded in vengeance and sadism. Once she carries out her own justice for her brother, we see her crack a smirk. Look at that smile. Wednesday for sure has whips and chains in a closet, and Enid doesn't even know it. I think that this insane love for violence has to do with her height. They say dynamite comes in small packages. Perhaps there's some form of Napoleon complex with Miss Addams. But some of my male viewers watching this right now will say no, she's just a stubborn Latina. That's very much likely, but I'm gonna keep my reasoning grounded. That's some good logic, but I'd like to believe her knack for wanting to bully bullies has more to do with the fact that she wants a reason to inflict pain on people, because she clearly doesn't like them, and at my big age right now, I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. The more plausible reason is actually bittersweet. Maybe there's actually a sadder reason as to why she feels the need to take out her internal frustration on the common folk. Let me put on my tinfoil hat for a second. The fact that she's already the black sheep everywhere she goes probably made her feel lonely. Wednesday is one of those people that claims they don't like people. That's a half-truth. The real reason for this is because nobody really sees her as a normal kid. So this affinity for destruction is maybe a way to make people notice her. This is shown with her strange relationship with Bianca. Their first encounter was full of wittiness and snarkiness from Wednesday. She dominated the queen bee without even trying. This clearly shows that no matter who you think you are or whatever social status you may have, Wednesday doesn't give a rat's ass. She quite literally talks to Principal Weems as though she's just some random substitute teacher. All of this just highlights her number one personality trait. This inept wit and sarcasm is what everyone loves about Wednesday. Take for instance when she got suspended from her first school. She gets upset because if people find out the real reason she got expelled, they'll be disappointed that she failed to get the job done. How psycho do you have to be? Like, you literally hinder the chances of this dude one day being a father, and you're worried about your street cred. In all fairness, who would want to have kids with this guy? But at the same time, give the man a fair chance. You decided to play God and just be like, meh, you're getting nuked today. She's not only proud that she nuked one of her peers, she's cherishing this moment. I can commend her for the fact that at least she knows blood is thicker than water. Hence I said she has this anti-hero complex. That's neither bad nor good, it all depends on who you ask. Wednesday is extremely driven to do bad. Now that might sound messed up, it might be, but then that fits since it's Wednesday. Alright, Miss Addams isn't that bad, she's just an anti-hero. She's the perfect example of if the ends justify the means, then make like Nike and just do it. The Poke Cup. Enid is eager to win the Poke Cup, and then once Wednesday enters the picture, she takes justice into her own hands. Not saying what she did was good, not saying what she did was bad, but like Wednesday, you literally could have just told Weems that she cheated. But the only way she would have been able to do this was just to take a photo, but Wednesday being Wednesday, she doesn't have a smartphone. This is another thing that's very peculiar about her as a person. I'll revisit this soon enough. Another example is how she wants to put an end to all the mess that's happening at Nevermore, but in the process, she causes a bunch of bad things to happen. It's not her fault, but spoiler alert, Weems would have never ended up in that situation if Wednesday never came to Nevermore. I'm just being honest. She's the opposite of a hopeless romantic. There's an entire subplot in season 1 about her being in a weird love triangle, if you can even call it that. Basically, there's this boy who she's interested in, but she's playing hard to get. Then there's Xavier who likes her but is in denial. He clearly has a thing for goth girls, and I don't blame him. I too had a phase when I was into girls who look like they have a hunting knife collection in their wardrobe and only wear black clothes. I get it, Mr. Thorpe. Oh, trust me, I get it. During his spare time, he sits alone in his shed and paints his crush. This is endearing and concerning at the same time. But the whole point of me bringing this up is because someone needs to thaw Wednesday's heart. Even with such a gesture, she doesn't really care. She sees it and is just stunned. But he doesn't really win any brownie points with her, because by the end of the first season, we all know who she was smooching on. That kiss was all for nothing because Wednesday isn't even the affectionate type. Which brings me to my next point. This girl is clearly asexual, like Enid seems like the type to want to be wined and dined, whereas with Wednesday, she's more like the type that if you arrive with a bouquet of flowers and a limousine to pick her up in for a date, she'll roast the rims on your car and pluck the petals off of the flowers before throwing them to the curb. She'd be more impressed if you bring her a dead rat instead. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little weensy bit, because if there's one thing Wednesday loves more than anything, it's this hand of 5 fingers. This is the only creature that can evoke some form of real emotion out of Wednesday. These two boys are suffering from a bad case of you want what you can't have. But I'm not too sure if their love for girls with a dominance fetish will plan out for them, because Wednesday is incredibly perceptive and swift with her hands. She outwits Gough at almost every turn. She can see through the bullshit of Jericho and its people. You can't finesse this kid. You simply can't outclass a member of the Addams family. Maybe Pugsley, but he'll come around. This is evident of how she was quick to pull a Houdini and wiggle her way from being tied by the nightshades. Every time someone bullies someone that she's close to or tries to size her up, she reminds us why you don't mess with Latinas. In the third episode, when her and her fellow classmates go to Jericho, she annihilates the pilgrims for the second time. Of course, she does so with ease, but that's besides the point. Wednesday has a clear affinity for violence. I mentioned earlier that Wednesday probably has some sharp objects in her closet. Perhaps I'm wrong, but if there's one thing she has, it's a whole lot of black. Black tops, black skirts, black boots. Wednesday wears a lot of black. Wednesday is basically a walking contradiction. Her entire family is rather odd. The only people who seem to be somewhat ordinary are her parents, but even they had their own drama of their own. Wednesday is extremely observant. This can be seen from how she quickly puts together the pieces of the puzzle that have been terrorizing Nevermore. But the first instance of this is her ability to play the cello. This can be highlighted again when she stands her own against Bianca during fencing. Technology. Everybody loves it and hates it. Miss Addams is the poster child for the anti-tech movement. She didn't get a cellular device until the season finale. She writes using a typewriter instead of a laptop like a normal person. This fondness for archaic ways kind of shows that she's either a pick-me or just prefers the simpler things. That's up to you to decide. Episode 6 is pretty pivotal in letting us see a bit of her past. Her childhood was what you'd expect. Her parents always made her birthdays memorable. So Wednesday has had this thing of liking the weird and wacky ever since she was a kid. Let's just say roughly from the age of 6, everything lines up. Firstly, she was born on a day associated with bad luck, and in her youth, her love for sadism was born. I only said age 6 because, well, 666, it just suits this girl. For all we know, she might have turned into a menace from the age of 11, but 6 sounded cooler in my head. Alright, I've been going in on Miss Addams, but when all is said and done, she's not an asshole. When Eugene was in the hospital, she came through and paid him a visit. She sees him as though he's her younger brother. If this dude ever asked her out, it's game over. He's basically Pugsley 2.0. She tries not to be such a prick to Tyler. Tyler is the epitome of nice guys, finished last. At least in the end, she gave him a kiss. It just sucks that it turned out to be something far from human. If you're still unconvinced that Miss Addams has a slither of kindness in her heart, you have to realize that she was pretty much gutted when Weems, let's just say Weems went from scolding Wednesday to biting the bullet for her. If that isn't true friendship, then I don't know what is. Miss Addams isn't a bad person. That's what makes her so interesting. She's just a girl. She's just a girl who's a bit odd depending on who you ask. She might like to sharpen hatchets in her spare time and correct her roommate's syntax and spelling from time to time for her own pleasure, but we all know someone like that. Wednesday is one of those people who will do whatever it takes to solve a Rubik's Cube. Back in elementary school, one of my friends brought one to school and nobody could figure it out. 2 of us went on forum sites to crack it, me being one of them because, I'm just that guy. Okay, that's enough self-glazing. The point is, Miss Addams could have just decided to be at Nevermore getting up to whatever it is kids her age do at school, but instead she was willing to communicate with the dead. Imagine being Enid and just saying you're already black sheep of a roommate doing rituals on the floor. Man, I'd call the feds and pray to God. But all of this just goes to show that Wednesday is extremely hell-bent on completing objectives. If there's one thing her and her old lady have, is that, surprise, surprise, they are more in common than they are different. Genetics wins again. But let's examine it further. Morticia went through her own debacle at the school ages ago, and it involved Gomez. Wednesday is experiencing her own list of woes that's basically also centered on a boy, regardless of how you look at it. Wednesday doesn't fear anything. Social anxiety fears some people, but in this case, trust me, the unknown is afraid of Wednesday. Her ability to communicate with her ancestors and not even remotely shy away from that is commendable. The fact that she's become so desensitized to the chaos of her entire family tree is pretty shocking. Uncle Fester's a guy who's a wanted man, and upon seeing this guy, she lets out this huge smile. If my uncle just showed up and said he's on the run, I'd be like, can't you see I'm trying to further my education here at Nevermore Academy? Like, leave me alone, bro. If there's one thing we can all agree on about Wednesday is that she's a feminist. The only reason I'm saying this is because ever since the first episode, she's been beefing with people of the opposite gender. From the pool boys to Tyler's father and even all the way down to Crackstone himself, if Wednesday keeps up this behavior, she's going to end up alone with the cat. Or she'll have Thing by her side forever. Come to think of it, that's not that bad. Is Wednesday pure evil? No, but sometimes she says some really twisted things that leaves me saying, where can I get a Latina just like her? She's kinda psycho and that's just my type.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, consider watching one of the two on your screen right now. And don't forget, villains tell the best stories.